I'm sitting in Bryson's 1987 Mazda RX7. He picked up this car in a pile of boxes. The engine was in shambles, the car was completely torn apart with pieces everywhere. He spent a year working through the car and he got it to where it was kind of functional, and then he left. Bryson's gone. He is serving a church mission. This is a volunteer situation where he funds his own way to teach the gospel of Jesus Christ to people in another area. While he's gone, I'm putting some time into sprucing up this car to see if it can be something just a little bit better than when he left. I've got it to where it's fairly mechanically sound. It'll go where I want it to go and it starts when I want it to start. So there are still some things to be done, but at the moment I'm focusing on some interior odds and ends. I found this cool little drift button. It's now positional, so it stays where you put it, which in theory means that you could use the thing to drift. Now I know the big boys don't use the stock drift handle, but it's kind of fun and adds just a little bit of flair to the e-brake. I found a complete replacement shift boot to replace the old ratted and tattered boot that was on here. This thing looks sharp. Again, look, it's not going to make the car run any better, but boy, it feels so much more refined and finished on the inside. I replaced the stock shifter with this short throw. The throw on this thing is now just, I mean, it's incredibly short and quick and snappy. You've really got to know where you want to put it, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. For those that are used to driving semi-trucks, this is a real challenge. I took out the stock Mazda steering wheel and put instead this quick release NRG. It seems to work pretty well and it's kind of fun. For the time being, the car is just being driven in the local area, in the neighborhood. It's not on a track or anything. If the time ever comes that it gets driven aggressively, maybe we'll reconsider the steering wheel. But for now, I like the feel of this one. The size is just right. These Corbeau seats, they're fantastic. I love the way they hold the driver in just the right spot. They're not so tight that they're uncomfortable, but they're tight enough to hold the position of the driver and give you something to rest against. The bolsters to the kidneys are strong. There's enough width in the seat to get in and out of it and use it comfortably under normal circumstances while still holding the driver firmly in place. So the Corbeau seats are fantastic. At the moment, I'm focused on the center console. This car comes with a stereo that's an odd size. It's a custom Mazda job that doesn't really allow anything to fill its spot. And you can buy some bezels that allow you to do some things to fill that hole okay. But I wanted to do something just a little bit unique. I had originally planned to put a double-din stereo in with a big screen, backup camera, the whole nine. After some further reflection, I'm going a different direction. I printed a bezel that will facilitate a single DIN radio, the Greddy turbo controller, and a voltage gauge with a USB charge port. That gives me a lot more flexibility and a lot more functionality. Here's the thinking. First off, if you've ever tried to use a touchscreen in a bumpy car, you know that that's a challenge all by itself. I wasn't sure if I wanted the touchscreen to begin with. As an old guy, I have a bit of an affinity for a volume knob on the stereo, so I appreciate that too. Secondly, this car is really not intended to be a high-tech or a luxury interior. This is a driver's car, and so while it's nice to have some sound, having some flashy stereo unit in here really isn't necessarily all that meaningful. I also wanted some space to accommodate two other things. The boost gauge in this car is the only gauge in the cluster that doesn't work. I think it's the sensor under the hood. Rather than work on that, the thinking is that the turbo controller would not only allow me to control the turbo, but it would also replace that gauge in superior fashion. Not only do I get a real-time reading on the turbo, but it'll give me history. It remembers the max turbo. It shows a trail of what the boost has been over time. It's simply vastly superior to the gauge that is in the cluster. Secondly, the turbo version of the RX7 does not have a voltage gauge on the cluster. Rather, that gauge that is present in the naturally aspirated version is replaced by the turbo gauge. So leaving just a little bit of a space for a voltage gauge is meaningful. If nothing else, that lets us know whether the alternator is functioning. And then as a bonus, having some USB charge ports for cell phones is really kind of nice. So what I'm doing now is hooking these things up. None of them is functional. I got a set of kicker speakers, some 4-inch for the front, some 6-inch for the rear, that will be wired into this radio. So that's really what I'm focused on now. I'm in the final stages of the plumbing and the wiring for the turbo controller. The controller unit is mounted here. This is the actuator that collects the pressure from the turbo and then determines how much to bleed off before it sends the rest off to the wastegate. Once we get this installed, we should be able to try it out. The concept behind this boost controller is really amazingly simple. All it does is allow some of the boost pressure to bleed before it gets to the wastegate. The controller on the inside of the car is what tells it how much of it to bleed off and how much of it to send back to the wastegate. And now, for the first time, I'm going to see how much boost the turbo is pushing in this car. I have the boost controller turned off. What that means is, at this point, it's a gauge only, and that's intentional. After understanding a little bit about what the turbo characteristics are, then we can do some adjustments. Well, it's time to see what we got here. Seven pounds of vacuum equates to about 14 inches, which feels a little low. Maybe that's okay for a rotary. I don't know what the standard is for a rotary. I would expect closer to maybe not quite 20 inches. The alternator is kicking out 14 volts, so that's good. That means we're getting a charge. The radio is working, but of course I have to turn that off. Otherwise, the YouTube copyright police are sure to catch me. Well, I see that the boost gauge is working. I haven't hit full throttle yet, but it does seem to be giving a good reading. It feels about right. That instrument cluster at the base of the center console is really quite aesthetically pleasing. Everything fits together in harmony. It's the kind of thing that you'd expect to be down there. Admittedly, it might be nice to have the boost gauge up a little higher, where it's more front and center for the driver. But because the boost gauge has a memory in it, that's less of a problem. And it's a relatively easy place to mount it. It just fits, there's space for it. So I feel good about where it is overall. And those pieces just fit together quite well. The blue all is in harmony down there, so that's kind of a bonus. Well, that's kind of fun. It looks like we peaked out at 11 pounds, and that's in line with what I expected. I thought maybe 10. I saw some turbo fade, where after holding it at high RPM, the turbo actually drops, and there's a control on here for that. The gain helps prevent turbo fade. So, we'll spend a little time dialing that thing in there. Oh my. Going up a little bit of a hill there. We got up over 12. How about that? That was working it pretty hard. That was a third gear pull up this little hill. And we were pushing 13 pounds right there. Kind of surprised, actually. That wasn't even quite 6,000 RPM right there. The car is running fantastic, though. The idle is smooth and clean. I have to admit, I did not expect to enjoy this car as much as I do. Bryson is the one who really pushed for it. He's done all the work to it. He's made all the arrangements. He's found the parts. He's done all the research. This is really the first time that I've done much with it. And I'm having more fun with it than I thought I would. Whoa! I full on broke loose on the back end right there. Okay, I did not see that coming. Holy smokes! Oh, that surprised me. I never thought I'd say it, but I like this car. Oh my goodness, what a hoot. Wow, too much fun. Now that car's a rush, man. That's fun. Too much fun. That's putting a little more of a smile on my face than I anticipated. I like that. That's a fun drive. The rotary has almost no torque, so there's nothing coming off the bottom end. But up around 5,000 RPM, the smiles kick in. That's pretty fun. The connection with the car is great. The steering wheel is amazingly comfortable. It's got just the right size circumference on the grip. I like the diameter of the wheel as well. And the power steering is working well, so that makes it quite comfortable to drive. The seat is just fantastic. It's comfortable, and yet it holds me. The bolster right here at the kidney keeps me from sloshing around too much, and yet it's comfortable to get in and out of and use as a daily driver. We'll have to think about that one. The engine is running flawlessly. We're getting, good grief, 13 pounds of boost. I did not expect that. It's good to know what that is, and it's good to have the ability to control it. It should be noted that the turbo controller does not allow reducing boost. You have to change the spring and the wastegate for that. What it does allow is increasing boost and boost timing. So if you want the boost to come on a little sooner, or if you want to fix a boost fade problem where after RPM is reached and the boost subsides a little bit or wanes, you can set the gain to keep the boost up where it's supposed to be. So it allows you to fine tune that, and we'll spend a little time doing that. That's actually not the priority. Mostly I just wanted to know what the boost is, and now I know. I'm really happy with how the instrumentation turned out down here at the base of the center console. Everything is blue, it all ties together, it looks like it belongs together. It provides just the right functions that I need. I was missing the volt gauge, now I have one. I like having that. I can see that the alternator is working. I don't have a functional boost gauge. A guy could try fixing what's there. Maybe I will at some point. But I like this better, not just for the gauge, but also for the ability to control it. And then a modest and simple head unit suffices quite nicely for sound. There are a few little rattles in the car, but not many, and at this point most of them I think are coming from the stack of tools that are in the back. So we'll work our way through those, but nothing major. It just, it feels so good. I think at this point I've got form and function largely established, and it's time to start thinking about some aesthetics. I need to be careful how much I do on the outside so that Bryson has a chance to make some decisions like that on his own. I don't want to do anything but irreversible, and a lot of those body kits are, man, they put holes in the body, and I don't know, they make me nervous. I'm thinking at this point that maybe the S5 front bumper cover with a chin spoiler, a lip added to it, might be the best way to go. The problem is, as soon as you do anything like that, you about have to put some paint on it. And maybe that's okay, because I got a few dingers in the body that I need to repair anyway. So maybe I go about doing that, cleaning up the body, fixing all the dingers, maybe adding some basic fairing and bumper enhancements. First gear, jam the throttle and turn the wheel, and the back end's floating. That's actually pretty impressive. I am like completely excited about this car. I spend a little too much time thinking about it, to be honest. The little things that are fun to add, the little things that I want to fix, the ways to spruce it up and make it look sharp. Now, after after spending a little time at the wheel. Maybe I need another one of these. Maybe I need one. This is Bryson's. I have to be careful what I do to it. Maybe I need one that I can gut, maybe put a roll bar in, a 3-point harness, angle kit, and take it out to the drift track. That would be a hoot, wouldn't it?